Anybody who's actually submitted anything is immediately not allowed to be judging. Yeah. So we have our judges panel. If I could just have your attention for a minute. We've got our judges panel, and what we'll do is, usual way, we'll Chris. Thank you. We'll go through each item in turn, and the person who's presented it can give a sort of a brief description of what it is, what it does, and whether it's kit, homebrew, or other, as the three categories are. And then once we've done that, we'll let the judges just get on with it, and people can go up and have a look if they want to, or ask questions of the people who've submitted them. And that's kind of how the evening's going to go. So, give us 5 minutes or so to have your cup of tea and have a bit of a chat, and then we will get things underway. All right, thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
On the road and see what people have been building, and what little gems we've got on the table tonight. So we'll start at the far end, if we may, and I can see a very, very nicely work in progress restoration of an HW101. I know it's work in progress because Chris keeps giving me fairly regular updates on what he's doing with it. So if we can start with Chris and then work our way along the table, and just give us an idea of what you've been doing with it, and then we'll let the judges listen in, and then they can take a look later on. Let's let Tony get his screws out a minute.
Screwing is whatever. Oh, he wants us to see.
James, can I beg your attention then?
Right, good
Chris,
evening all.
thank you.
Yeah, my exhibit here tonight is, some of you that have listened in on the Mondays or Wednesdays 80 metre net, is a thing that I've been working on for at least 6 months.
Feels longer.
Maybe even longer. It felt like longer, yes. Right. It was an HW101 that I bought off of eBay for 50 quid as not working at all. I bought it for bits because I have my own HW101 and I needed to replace some things on there, and it was cheaper to buy a kit that didn't work and strip off bits that I wanted to put on that one and get it working. So that one's all lovely, nice and working at home. And I did that about 2 years ago. Now, more closer, i.e. 6 months or so ago, I thought, I wonder whether or not I can get this other HW1 up and working. So I stripped the whole thing down, literally took all the boards out, cleaned off the boards, replaced every single resistor on it that needed replacing, replaced a whole load of capacitors, certainly all the old-fashioned paper capacitors needed to be checked out and got rid of and replaced with modern ones. A lot of the ceramic capacitors are changed and so on and so forth. However, there's a story there. Be very careful of ceramic capacitors that you buy from a well-known Chinese emporium, because brackets, they're a little bit dubious. And I put some in and then had to take them out and put the old ones back in because it was a nightmare. I had to buy a couple of new crystals for it. And then put it all back together again and then trying to get it to work. And it's been, with the help of quite a few people around here, particularly Andrew and particularly Tony at the back and one or two others who have helped, plus the blog site from Heath Kit as well. That they're very good at fishing around for various things. Replaced some of the valves that needed replacing. A lot I had anyway from my other set, but the blog site suggests using other valves which are cheaper and not so expensive, and I've put those in and it still works cheap. So if you like, in the last just about week or so, I've actually got it working as a transceiver, all bar 15 metres, which for some unknown reason, the heterodyne oscillator on 15 metres will not oscillate. I've tried everything and I just can't figure out why it won't oscillate. However, it works on 80, 40, 20 and 10, and on 80, 40 and 20, there's 100 watts output on it. Full S meter readings, we had trouble with S meter readings all along the line and so on and so forth. And I get about 50 to 60 watts on 10 meters, which is not surprising, it does tend to tail off up the top end. So there it is, and there it goes, and we actually tried it out, and we actually managed to send a signal with full 100 watts into a dummy load, all the way across to the on the other side of the room. So just to prove that it does work. But anybody wants, it's all working, if anybody wants to try, you've got to speak in the microphone, and you'll see the needle on the meter there quite happily dance away to your modulation. This afternoon I worked 3 or 4 different stations on 80, one on and a couple on 20. They're mostly the special event stations, which you know somebody's going to answer to. So GB3 ARS, GB2 something or other else, another special, and also a couple of the WWV stations out in Italy that completely swapped the whole of that band, and I managed to work all of those with good signals, and it says good modulation. Now, one of the other things that's in there that you can't see, and I'm not going to take the thing apart so you can, but you just have to believe it, is the microphone is a trio, believe it or not. It's kicking around, a dynamic microphone, 600 ohms. This wants to see an input of a 15K crystal microphone, not 600 ohms from dynamic. So inside there, that I had built myself, is a 12 volt rectifier from the filament voltage, which is 13.6. So it gives me 12 volts out of my 13.6 as DC, bar a 7812 rectifier. Right, and that feeds into an LM358 double thingy, just double amplifier, so that it now runs the dynamic microphone quite happily with the output. And there it is, a 1974, just to give you an idea when it was first built, 1974, 19 valve super heterodyne SSB transceiver. In its day, it was the workhorse of every single amateur that ever had to start radio. You started with one of these, whether you built it yourself or you didn't. That's what you started with. A dear old HW101. And there we are, 2026, and it's still now fully-ish operational. Thank you.
At a certain age, you will remember your teenage years with a certain amount of joy, and that joy involves a Friday night and a Chinese chip shop somewhere, right? And in that Chinese chip shop, or wherever it was, a local chippy, Space Invaders, Asteroids, Defender, and all the rest. Yeah. Well, they're 8-bit, what's called 8-bit games, 8 or 16-bit games. And whilst I'm not exactly a gamer per se in the modern terminology, I do have a certain, I don't know, yeah, a little bit, recaptured a little bit of my youth, shall we say, it's probably the best idea. And I had these bits lying around. Now, my original plan was to take the games device, which, believe it or not, is this. Right, this little pod here. So disassemble it. I wanted to fit a big, proper, big handle. Yeah. A joystick that we used to yank really hard and get shouted at by the chef for breaking his machine, whatever. Strip it all down, put some big buttons in and all the rest of it, and I've basically got like a bar top games arcade machine. Yeah, when I took this thing to bits, yeah, my eyesight's just not that good. And I don't have a magnifying microscope with a 10-inch screen on it. The way it's set up inside here, it's all pressure pads. So I think with a, you know, if I'd maybe spent 3 or 4 weeks trying to figure it out, I might have got there in the end, but it's too much, yeah. And this is basically an experiment. Inside here, the display is actually a 12-inch camping caravan that runs on 12 volts only. It's got various different inputs on the back of it, which is quite interesting. Unfortunately, I didn't have the remote for it, but did I really need it? No, not really. This particular console has 200 games on it. Let me go the other way. And, yay! Go on then. Yeah. So, there you are, proof it does work. Okay. It's irritating if you leave it on, it just plays that god awful music all the time. Why did I build it? I don't know, because I was bored. You know, it was a bit of a challenge. I think the best thing about this, as far as I'm concerned, is the paintwork. Right? As you all know, I've spent, you know, over a decade in a motorcycle paint shop, and this is actually the first time I've ever tried using this technique on the sides and the front here. The lettering, yeah, all right, I'll lie. I won't lie, they're stick-on. But the rest of it, the textured paint is automotive textured paint, etc. It's hard wearing. I don't do wood. Right? I don't do wood at all. I do metal. Right?
It's not virtuous.
That's all wood. It's a challenge. That was really a challenge for me to make this case and to get it to fit together as well as it did. Okay. I had some sheets of plywood left over from when I actually had to board a floor prior to it having a lino put down on it. Ordered a little bit too much, so it's like, what can I use it for? So I had a think about it, and then had all these bits and pieces lying around. I thought I'll just put it together and see if I can get it to work. The bit of metal in it is actually, and I'm very proud of this, is actually the bracket that holds the screen in place. Because not only is it folded in 4 dimensions, not 4 dimensions, but 4 different ways to make it rigid enough to actually not wobble. And you can see it if you pull the back off. Nothing exciting, but I'd just say, you know, I'm proud of that because I actually made it work. The next one's full size, and that's got 10,000 games on it, and that's dual player. And you'll probably see that next year. All right, thanks guys.
This is just a novelty thing I brought along since construction night, and I thought, I'll bring this along. I make these things in my spare time. They're standard wooden model kits that you can buy off of the internet, etc. This one's of the space shuttle. The thing I liked about this one is the fact that it's got a logic module in it, believe it or not, and some motors, because you can actually, it'll actually do things, which is quite nice, which makes a difference. 570 pieces in this, and they all just slot together if you've never done it. You sort of push them out from a big sheet and push them all together. Get the sort of sand bits down and wax bits for the cogs and the wheels. So that's got down to the bottom. If you push that again, go up. Here we go, so it'll go back up. And at the end it looks as though it's so taking off because the bottom bit all goes orange. Anyway, it's just a novelty item. I brought it along and I thought, there you go, it's a construction thing. Wife is getting to a stage now because I think I've got about 8 or 10 of these different models. She's saying, how many more are you getting? Because I don't know where to put them all. So, yeah, and there it goes, and it's all back into its place. So, Simple as if anybody wants something to do in their spare time. They're wonderful models to make. Really good fun, if nothing else.
Very good.
Different from a jigsaw puzzle because it
Yeah,
yeah.
very much so.
And as Lin says, when you make one of these, what you must have is a bottle or a tube or something that contains super glue, because you can bet your sweet life that you break all bits of it and you've got to glue the bits together again before you can start reassembling. And you have to make sure you follow, that's the one main thing. You must follow the instructions. I know that's difficult for everybody in the room.
Read the effing
I mean,
manual.
as radio amateurs, we know the first thing you do with the instruction book is to put it in the waste bin. We know what we're doing, don't we? Right, end of instruction book, right, I now know what to do and put this together. No, with these, you must follow the instructions or else. You're in.
Did you do it before or after you got out?
Okay, guys, totally homebrew this part.
Oh no, I couldn't do that.
Okay.
Totally homebrew this part. It even includes some maths, so you need to get your brains working, okay? Any of you worked on old valve equipment?
Yes.
One or two? Or switch mode power supplies?
Yeah.
People go, ooh.
Yeah.
And television?
Yeah.
What's one of the worst things you can find in one of those?
Big capacitor.
That's the one, a big capacitor.
The one you need the Jesus screwdriver for.
Yeah. Well, if you discharge them with a screwdriver, you don't discharge them fully. They will
You short them out and then they jump back into life.
Exactly. So the best way to do it is to discharge them properly. So what I decided to do was build one. And in this little box, there are some resistors. In fact, there's 4 1K resistors in series across the probes. So you put those on the capacitor, it will discharge slowly. And it will do anything up to about 400 or 500 volts. If you want to play with the maths, work out 400 or 500 volts across 4K, you'll work out the amount of power coming out of it. You need big resistors, certainly for the initial stages. And you can't run it on you can't just plug this into a power supply, you cook the resistors. However, that's the simple bit. How do you know when it's discharged? Well, the answer to that is if you put across the probes another set of resistors and an LED, it'll tell you when it goes out that's discharged. Or if you put one in one direction and one in the other direction, you get the probes either way around, it doesn't matter. So, here we have in the box, and it's all built in the old style on tag strips. And there are 4 1K resistors underneath all this. I won't take it out because it's held in on rubber grommets. But there are also resistors for the dropper resistors for the LEDs. But the LEDs are across not just the line. They're actually got a 5 volt Zener across them to stop them overloading when you got high voltage in there. So it'll hold the voltage for the LEDs at 5 volts through a dropper resistor, so they're quite happy. And this will discharge things, and the LEDs will go out at around 1 volt, believe it or not. They're very sensitive, and I didn't expect it to be quite so low, but it will discharge them slowly. The only other thing I need to do with it is I'm going to put a switch in the top somewhere, if I can fit one, to short out 2 of the 1K resistors. So when you get a low voltage capacitor, it'll discharge it a little bit faster, because 4K across 16 volts is not quite so not so efficient as it is across a big voltage. So that's what it is. It's all built into this box, and just press fitted in there. It's nothing screwed in. It's just actually fits in there quite nicely. And the probes are a set of normal probe leads, And for those who didn't notice, they've actually got defenders on them, but you can take those off when you use it, of course. So if you want to know what the current values are, you have to sit down and play with the maths. Anybody interested? No takers, eh? What a surprise. What a surprise. Anyway,
Screwdriver with a lamp.
yeah, but you end up with pits in your screwdrivers and you don't need discharges. That's
This is true.
And also, I don't think you do the capacitors too much good either.
That's the flash ones.
But there are. But that's my my little project that I brought down for you all to see.
Right. Next one, Brandon.
Okay then guys, so what have I brought in tonight? This, I suppose you could call it a homebrew power supply, old vintage looking thing. See otherwise, shack door stop, small boat mooring, fancy paperweight, or a good equivalent for half a concrete block. In all due respect to it, it came into TARS probably 2 years ago now, as a part of an SK cell. I can't lay claim to completely building it, I didn't. It was probably, I'd have said, probably 60-70% done. There is a picture of it down there if you want to have a look at it. I did replace quite a bit of wiring in it, as you can imagine, being a bit old and a bit dated. Especially the mains lead and some other bits around the transformer were a bit ratty, to say the least. It's got some really interesting components in it, otherwise a sensibly basic power supply. Transformer, some big caps in the back that are, again, quite interesting. Bridge rectifier in the base, a couple of transistors up in the front side of it, and a rather interesting, again, homemade voltage control circuit board, which, when you actually start looking at it, nicely put together. And what was quite interesting about it is where somebody had actually used a rotary potentiometer, they'd actually set it and then adhesive set it in place so I couldn't move it. Fair play. Means it makes it basically analog, I guess. It does what it's supposed to do. Nice. Another little point on it is the transformer in the back has got, as you can see, quite a few tappings on it, which are really, really helpful when a really nice cast aluminium fan turned up at a rally for next to nothing, because it's 115 volts. I was like, well, where am I going to use that to? And it just so happened it's got a 115 volt tapping on it. That'll do nicely. Other than that, it was a bit of a curio, I guess you could say. It hasn't cost me really anything to put it together. A couple of bits and pieces, some terminals, some wiring. Like I say, the majority of it was already there. It just needed tidying up and kind of finishing off, I guess you could say. It's currently sat, ironically, with very little load charging. Currently charging my phone at 13.3 volts. I've not fully load tested it. If I was gonna offer a hazardous and cautious guess, I suppose, I probably wouldn't push it past 20 amps. Like I say, the rectifier in it is a BR256. They're only good to about 25 amps anyway. I wouldn't go pushing it too far beyond anything like that. But it's, like I say, it was too good to strip for parts, and was, to be quite honest, a bit of fun and a bit of education to bring back to life, you could say. Obviously you can see over there it's modern counter equivalent, which probably weighs a third of the weight and supplies just as much power, if not maybe a bit more. But like I say, a little bit of something interesting to do, and to be honest, it's perfectly usable and does what it's supposed to do. And something different to look at. That's it, guys.
Right, this is an Elcraft K2. It's 20 years old. Well, it was, and that's how it's left in its box for 20 years, because the person who built it owned it up and went, no way, and shoved it away. He was speaking to me on the radio, and I said, well, if you've got one in bits, I'll take it off your hands. And I did. Okay, I've added a few bits to it. It is a transceiver HF that goes from top band to 10 metres in 10 hertz resolution steps. It has a very narrow crystal filter in it for CW that goes down to 50 hertz. So Derek had one. It's ideal for CW. You hear nothing. There's an SSB board that you have to build. You have to build the whole thing. And that has a tunable filter in that goes from 400 hertz to about 2.7 kilohertz. Every component is through hole, except for one, which has gone obsolete, and had to make that surface mount. That's what it went for that. Every coil and troy you have to wind, counting the turns. Okay? And there are a load of coils in there. The unit is constructed, obviously following the instructions. I've given this video here is showing, you know, from it going together at various stages up until using it on the air. There's a little couple of videos of it being used. In it is a ATU as well, has a automatic ATU, it's a separate that's been put in, and that has a 100-to-1 ratio, so it will tune anything, not like the normal rigs that will tune bugger all basically. It has a real-time clock in, and it also has an audio notch filter for CW again, and it also has a very narrow amplifier, so when you put in the audio amplifier on the end, the filter, it only peaks across the audio band 50 hertz each side of 700 hertz. So anything else on CW you just don't hear. So it really, so you hear a little noisy CW signal, you put it through that and it comes as clear as a bell, and you can't hear any background noise. It's really good, the AF on that. I've added 60 meters to it for 60 meters. I've added top band to it, didn't have top band naturally. And the other thing I've added, I put in, is the reference oscillator is 4 megs, but it's a crystal. So I thought, well, how, without test equipment, how do you get it on 4 megs? Well, inbuilt into the front panel is a DVM and a frequency counter. So that's how you set the thing up, because it has its own test equipment in it. But I thought, how do you set the 4 megs? And they say you beat it with off-air signals and all that sort of rubbish. So I thought, no. So I got a TCXO 4 meg block, and I put that in, took the crystal out, so that feeds it. If you turn up the volume, if I'm quick enough. Come on. I don't know where the volume is. Volume. Right, volume. Don't know, I've lost it. Turn up volume, turn up volume. Lost the volume control of the rig. Anyway, so there we go. You put it all together, bit by bit, and as you go, you get the front panel going, and you get enough bits on the back to get the front panel going. There's tests you do. So as you build up the radio, you test it as you go. And the first thing you do, you get 40 meters running, and you think, that's receiving. So when you add the next band and the next band, it gives you confidence that it's all going to work, rather than putting it all together and finding out it doesn't work. So there we go. So it gives you 20 watts from top band 10 meters, SSB CW, upper and lower side band, and it also has a preamp in, an attenuator. What else? Other modes, other bits you've got. Antenna switching at the back. Also built into it is a RS-232 unit, so you can control it remotely. A transverter in and out, so you can use it to transfer it to other bands. And I think that's about it. Yeah. That is it, and it fully works. And you can still buy this from L-Craft. It's about £400. And wind away an evening. And
what an evening.
Now, the other story behind it, I built one 20 years ago, and in a weak moment I sold it to buy a K3. That's another kit, yeah. And then I got seller's regret almost as it went out the door. So I went and bought, that's how I built another one. Yeah. So I'm not going to sell my K2 or my K3 ever again. To fund the K4, I'll just buy the K4. And that's it really. Come look at the pictures. And if I only get the volume control up, we can hear it working. Oh, here it is. Okay. I think when we come to something that speaks. Anyway, you'll hear it when it comes up. Take it caravanning, ideal portable, ATU, doublet, push a button, clicks, and it also remembers everything it does. So next time you go to that frequency, it knows it's there. That's it.
Andrew, would you have to use an external CW keyer for that?
No.
Because it's not got a built-in CW keyer, is it?
Yes.
It has.
Yes.
Amazing.
L-craft.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to use it, yeah, it's got all that. Yeah. That's actually caught me out because I was testing that bit and I left the socket in. And when you leave that socket in, when I was testing the front panel, none of the buttons worked. Just a matter of. And when I pulled that out, it also. Oh yeah. But there you go. Yes, it's got the key in. Yep. The filter on it is second to none, and it really is good. The insertion oscillator is quite complex to get the carrier pitch right. And what you do, you just put some noise in and look it on spectrograph, and then you actually adjust the carrier oscillator to get the shape of the response you want, which is quite good. Yeah. There we go. So that's just a power supply to run it, and that's it.
In my usual fashion, guys, I've gone retro. This is actually based on a 1920s design, but I've done a few bits with it to try and mess it about and make it do what it should do. First of all, just looking at the front panel, the whole chassis is all aluminium construction. I've not bolted it together so it's able to come out and people can see how it's all put together. And the case, believe it or not, is made out of what was originally a wooden box full of shoe care products, which I adapted, took the lid off it, turned it on its side, cut the relevant holes in it, and turned it into a nice wooden case for this, and then made all the front panel and everything to fit. Ignore this is an active antenna which hopefully would actually show this thing working. I'll switch it on so you can take a look at the front. And the front is kind of loosely modelled on Collins with the nice bezel there. I designed the bezel in Google SketchUp and then put it through the 3D printer to it. Oh my God.
Kettle spoil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll explain why it does that.
Yeah, regeneration.
See if, I don't know if I'll actually get anything on it, but anyway, upshot is, as I say, the front panel is designed loosely on Collins because I happen to like the look of the bezel on the front. So the scale plate and everything all in behind is paper printed and then stuck onto a CD, which has then got a boss that I made to go in the middle to sit on the shaft, and that's got a reduction drive on it. So basically, the whole thing looks quite nice when it's being used. It's a regenerative set, and it's based on one single valve and about half a dozen passive components. And it will receive from 4.5 to 7.5 megahertz. It'll receive AM, SSB, and CW. The clever thing with the regen set is that the way they work is they work in a way a little bit like a crystal set. The signal goes into the valve, and the valve offers a certain amount of amplification. And then what it does, by changing the bias on the control grid, either positive or negative, you can increase the amount of amplification, and a certain amount of the signal is then fed back into another coil. That coil is in phase with the main tuning coil. So you've got your tune circuit, your L and your C tune circuit. Then you have another coil, which if it's in phase, the effect of the feedback is additive. So it will continue to increase its effective, its output from the coil until you get to the point where it does that. Yeah. That's now, if you think about audio feedback, if you hold a microphone close to a speaker, and I feel they'll understand this, if you hold a microphone close to a speaker, it gradually starts to go into howl. And that is exactly what you've got there. That's going into howl. The problem with a regenerative set is that unless you've got filtering on them, which this one hasn't, which is why I'm trying to keep it out of regen, if you haven't got filtering on it, it can actually turn into a transmitter. So you're basically sending oscillations back up the antenna again. But they do work very, very well, because if you keep them just out of oscillation, they will quite happily resolve AM. If you get them just into oscillation, it almost generates the carrier that's missing from SSB and CW signals. So you can then resolve SSB and CW with it. But the tuning on them is an absolute pig.
Yep.
They are really, really hard to tune, because you've not only got to adjust the tuning, you've got to adjust the regen, and every time you adjust that, the other one needs readjusting. And then, because with this, I found initially when I built it, I wasn't happy with the signal strength it was receiving at all, because the toroid in there is about, you know, the size of the end of my finger, and it's got 55 turns of wire on it, and another 6 for the tickler coil, which is what the regenerator coil is called. I wasn't happy with what I was getting out of it. So I increased the number of turns on the coupling coil, and then I found that even, you know, strong signals completely overruling it, and it was overdriving it so badly that I couldn't back the regen off. So to overcome that, I put an RF attenuator on the front of it. So the antenna basically comes in and goes through a potential divider, and then off on the coupling capacitor back into it again. So I can back off the signal strength actually entering the radio. But it does work. I had Shannon Volmet on it this afternoon. I've heard signals on the 40 metre band. I've heard the broadcast bands from sort of just up above 4.5 megs right the way up through to 7.5 megs. So that's 41 metre band, the 50, I think it's 50 metre band, something like that, going down through. It doesn't go down as far as 80, but as I say, it does work. One of the common problems that people have with regenerative sets, they say, I can't get it to oscillate, can't get it to go into regeneration. And 9 times out of 10, the reason for that is because there's either insufficient coupling between the tickler coil and the main coil, or alternatively, the signals going into the tickler and into the main coil are actually out of phase, which you get cancellation. If you've got them in phase, they become additive. So what you've got to remember is you've got to remember this one, guys. When you're thinking about building regenerative sets, remember what any girl will tell you. And that is, if you can't get it to howl, your tickler is not in right. It's taken me all day to think of that one. But anyway, no, seriously, they're great fun to build, because there's so few components in it. And the other thing is, for anybody who knows anything about valves, you always know that you're usually working with sort of 150 volts anode to cathode or something like that. Or if you're on a battery set, maybe 90 volts. This is actually running in starvation mode using a pentode. It's a 12BA6 pentode, and it's running in starvation mode on 12 volts. So that's the actual anode to cathode voltage. But I don't know if we will get anything, but I will try. So I've got it just into regeneration. So you can hear it hissing. I was going to say, I doubt very much we'll hear anything in here with just this loop antenna. The NC plug's not very good either. They're up in the broadcast band.
Germany calling, Germany calling.
Lord Haw, yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
So that's a broadcast station right up at the top end of the band. That's up the 41 metre broadcast band.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a single valve regenerative set based on a 1920s design, using a pentode in starvation mode and about half a dozen components, and it was finished this afternoon. So there you go. Right.
So this is a complete Wonder Whip.
It's not. Unfortunately, I got all the components over a period of months, and these rotary switches. Don't get me started on rotary switches. This one's all right, it's working well, but the second one, which was the trimmer for changing the high end and low end part of the induction, it's basically an auto transformer, but you can dial it into whatever induction you want to match your 5.5 meter whip with your POTA transceiver. That's what I was planning for, and I was going to have a handheld ready for you, but didn't work. So buying Chinesium components, somebody mentioned it earlier today. Yeah, waste of time. As soon as I touched the soldering iron, which is only a 15 watt, it literally, all the pressings just fell inside the, and it wouldn't turn. So that was the end of that. But it's quite nice to look at. And I promise you that sometime this summer I'll be doing POTA with it. So
What is it?
ATU.
it's an ATU,
ATU.
basically, but it's not. It's It's an induction matcher. So if you look at the other submission, this is a passive version of the same thing, which is my second submission, which is a 49 to 1 unknown. So that's a passive version of this, but this is adjustable, so you can basically change this. You could treat it a bit like the bottom loading part of the coil on a whip, if you will, but it's actually inside the transceiver box. And the idea is that this one is the large range, and the other one that's broken is the fine tune. So that you would use it in the old way of tuning for more noise, and then check your SWR, off you go. So that's as far as I got with it. And the other submission is a standard 49 to 1 and for end-fed halfway. Everybody knows what they are, but I was bringing that so you could understand the relationship between the two. There you go, guys.
Possible.
Right, I think that's concluded all of the entries for tonight. Nice to see a good selection of very, very different things. You know, from vintage transceivers with 19 valves to things using one valve, to game consoles, to coil winding, power supplies. It just goes to show what level of skills there is in the club for people building things. And it's lovely to see. So thank you everybody for the contributions tonight. I hope everybody's really enjoyed that. Do you have any questions for anyone on anything that's been up on display? No questions. Okay, that's fine. In which case then, what we need to do now is we need to leave our judges to have a look at all the things. So if we can give them a chance and a free rein up here to do what they need to do, that'll be ideal. And as I say, judges are Don, David and Mike. I know Don's been frantically making notes. So he's our head judge. He's our Len Goodman.
I don't think so.
I didn't want to call you Shirley Banks, so I thought Ben Goodman would call you after me. Yeah. Whilst I've still got you guys, I think next week is just a bit of a social one. And then we have got another talk coming up on the Lorenz cipher from Don, which I think is the 13th. So we've got some interesting things coming up. Please don't forget, we've also got the AGM coming up. So if you have any nominations for any of the committee positions or whatever, there are forms available. There's an example of one up on the board up there. So please put them in. And I'm also pleased to tell you that the club accounts have all been done. They've all been audited and everything is looking great. So no issues there. And then the outcome of tonight will be explained to you at the presentation night, which is going to take place in March. And if you haven't uploaded your logs yet and you want to take part in the club competitions, Ed is waiting for them. He's our contest manager. So we could do with a few more logs uploaded. Right? Right, thanks everybody for your interest this evening. We'll let the judges do their work. Enjoy the rest of the evening.